start a reading vlog, and it is Friday, TGIF. Yeah, it's been a really rough week around these parts, so I'm super happy that it's Friday and we get to take a break from homeschool. Anyway, I am reading this weekend. I'm going to attempt to read this When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. So Alyssa Cole is a romance author, and I have read 2 of her books. I read A Duke by Default, and I think the other one is like Prince on Paper or something, and I really, really liked those. This is her first attempt at a mystery. So it's called a thriller, not a mystery. So it says Sydney Green is Brooklyn born and raised, but her beloved neighborhood seems to change every time she blinks. Condos are sprouting up like weeds, for sale signs are popping up overnight, and the neighbors she's known all of her life are disappearing. To hold on to her community's past and present, she channels her frustration into a walking tour and finds an unlikely and unwanted assistant in one of the new arrivals to the block, her neighbor Theo. But Sydney and Theo's deep dive into history quickly becomes a dizzying descent into paranoia and fear. Their neighbors may not have moved to the suburbs after all, and the push to revitalize the community may be more deadly than advertised. When does coincidence become conspiracy? Where do people go when gentrification pushes them out? Can Sydney and Theo trust each other or themselves long enough to find out before they too disappear? So, yeah, it sounds really interesting. So I'm going to read that this weekend. I'm not sure what else or how long it will take me to finish this. I'm also listening to The Night Swim on audiobook, and I am a little bit more than halfway finished with that, so hopefully I'll finish that this weekend as well. But yeah, I am going to, my husband just ran out to get dinner, so I'm going to read a little bit, and then we'll probably eat dinner, and then I'll probably spend the rest of the night reading, hopefully. So I will check in with you later. Hi friends, it is Saturday, and yeah, I did not, let me take this off. I just pulled in to the parking lot of the library because I need to pick up some books, but I did not check back in last night because yesterday we found out that Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away, and I, like a lot of people, I was completely, I don't even know what the appropriate word would be, wrecked. I was wrecked by that news. Not only sad for her family, obviously, especially as I learned that yesterday was the first day of like the Jewish holiday, and just knowing that her family would be starting like one of their holiest times of year without her, or with her death happening on that same day, was just really sad. Then I saw the tweet saying her granddaughter had said like what her granddaughter had indicated what one of the last things she said was before she passed away, and that made me sad. And then I just started freaking out about what that means for our country, what that means for me personally as a woman, as a black woman, worrying about my children and, you know, working on a plan B. Like, we're less than 50 days out from the election. I know that Mitch McConnell basically has no moral compass and is going to try to push a Supreme Court nominee through. And even if they lose the presidency, which, you know, I'm not sure that they will, because, well, this is America and they voted for him in the first place. Even after the election, they still have time to push through another judge. And I don't know, I'm really sad about that and quite frankly terrified. So, yeah, I did not, so as a result, I did actually finish listening to the audiobook of The Night Swim, just because I couldn't really do much else but lay in my bed and try not to have a panic attack. And I'm not sure that was the best book to be reading at a time like that. It deals very heavily. Okay, so this is like a trigger warning if these things are in any way like upsetting for you. You may not want to watch this part, but it deals very heavily with rape culture and a rape trial. So the premise of the story is Rachel Crawl is a podcaster. She has a very popular podcast, much in the vein of Serial. And while she usually covers cold cases, for the third season of her podcast, she is going to cover a trial live as it's happening. So it is the trial of Scott, the young man's name is Scott. I can't remember his last name, but he is from a very wealthy family in the town. It takes place in North Carolina, a small coastal North Carolina town. He's from a wealthy family. He is an athlete. He's a swimmer, and has gone on to college and has aspirations of swimming in the Olympics. His father was a swimmer as well, and he has been charged with the sexual assault of a local girl. She's identified in the trial as Kay, to have some anonymity. And yeah, so the town is split as to whether they believe him or her. And then while Rachel is in town covering that trial, she begins to receive notes about another rape and a murder that actually happened 25 years before this trial. The victim's name was Jenny Stills, I believe. And her younger sister Hannah begins writing to Rachel asking for her help in figuring out who murdered her sister. So we go through that, and it's very much dissecting rape culture and the trauma that happens to victims when they come forward and try to pursue criminal charges against their rapists, and what that means to them, how it affects their families. So, we get background on both the victim and the perpetrator. And I think Rachel, in the beginning, tries her best to kind of be unbiased as she can be. We do get some background into just how women live, and things are so ingrained in us that we don't even recognize the things that we do that seem to be automatic, but which are troubling. The dozens of decisions that happen, really, in the blink of an eye, that we do to kind of make sure that we're safe, like where our car is parked, if we're going somewhere alone, carrying our keys kind of tucked in between our fingers in case we encounter someone, making a mental note of when you are out, the men that are sort of near you, and how many of them are near you, and where the exits are. All of those sorts of things that we kind of clock automatically without even thinking of, that are really troubling when you start to think about the reasons that we do them. And there are articles and listicles about how we as women can better protect ourselves, but the best way to prevent a rape or a sexual assault would be like, just don't be a rapist. But we never tell men that. And I know that men are not the only people who can perpetrate a sexual assault, but in this story, it's a guy and a girl. So yeah, so it was a very, it's a very hard read. I ended up giving it 5 stars. It is a really good book. I listened to it on audio, and I really like the structure. So we get the story from 2 different perspectives. We hear from Rachel, who is the podcaster, and then we get to hear Hannah's voice, who is the younger sister of the victim in the sort of cold case. And we learn that it's not really a cold case, that the authorities had determined that there was no rape, there was no murder. She was a wild girl who ended up doing something silly, and they were saying that there was like this jetty off the beach, and she had gone swimming, and she dove off of a place that she shouldn't have, and she died. And that was sort of the official story behind it. And it just makes you, I thought the ending was very well done. I didn't expect it to go where it went. I will say that both cases are wrapped up, so there's not like lingering doubt, which I don't always think things have to be tied neatly in a bow, but for these kinds of cases, I don't like ambiguous endings. And so both cases are solved, if you want to say that. I really didn't see the story going where it went. It is very much a slow burn kind of thriller. There's not a lot of action. Most of it takes place, I mean, the um, current stuff, a lot of it takes place in a courtroom. And then the last, I don't even know how many pages because I was listening to the audiobook, but the last sort of, I don't even know if it's like a quarter of the book, but like the last sort of 15% of the book is really like where the action picks up, and the pacing gets a little bit more frantic, I think, as all of these chips seem to fall into place in terms of like the story points. So yeah, I gave it 5 stars. I really like the narrator of the audiobook. I like that so I think the chapters maybe go back and forth between the characters, and then there are sections that are like, I guess, the podcast recording. I'm not sure how they set it up in the book, but there are like podcast episodes like in between some of the chapters, and I really enjoyed that. Whoever the actress was that was reading the book did a really good job in terms of like putting us in the story. She very much has that like NPR cadence to her voice that a lot of podcasters have, that I really like. So that's one of my other things when I listen to like thrillers or mysteries. Sometimes I don't like to listen to them because I think stories can be a bit more frightening, and for me, like intense and harder to get through when you listen, because you're like drawn into the story a little bit more, if that makes sense. Whereas when you're reading it, when it gets to be a bit too much, like you can just kind of close the book and walk away a little bit easier. But I like that she had like a really soothing tone to her voice. So even when you're hearing these absolutely terrible things, they're not, I mean, they are brutal, but like, I don't know, they just weren't like eating at me, I think, the way that maybe it would have if someone else had narrated it. Or I don't know, perhaps I was so like emotionally shut down last night that nothing really was going to land like that. So yeah, definitely, if you like thrillers, I would say pick it up and give it a read or a listen. And then this morning I started When No One Was Watching, which is by the first mystery or thriller, I'm sorry, from Alyssa Cole. And I think I'm about like 65 pages into that. I also found the audiobook on Scribd. So we actually went out today and drove a little bit of way. So we kind of live on the border of Ohio and Kentucky. So we drove into Kentucky to like this flower market to get flowers this morning. Today is the 17th anniversary of my first date with my husband. And so he always like gets me something sweet on this day. So we went and got flowers and picked up breakfast from one of our favorite restaurants, and we were going to eat. There's like park space on the waterfront or riverfront. We were going to eat there, but the restaurant did not give us any like cutlery in our order, so we didn't have any utensils to eat with. So we ended up driving back home, and Yeah, I'm still like, I feel really like anxious right now for some reason and just kind of out of sorts. But I do have some books to return to the library and some books to pick up. So I am going to do that now and then go home and maybe, I don't know, maybe, what time is it? Oh, it's 2. So I could technically like have a cocktail and that wouldn't be like a terrible thing. So maybe I will do that. It's a little bit, it's like one of those perfect fall days. I think it's like 67 degrees, so it was cool enough to wear a sweater today, a sweater and jeans, but also warm enough that I could still wear sandals, which is kind of my favorite kind of fall weather. So, yeah, I'm going to go pick up my books and go back home. The house is a bit of a wreck. It always is. I still need to cut my flowers and put them in a vase. Like the vase that I typically use, I already have flowers in because my husband also surprised me earlier in the week. We are just like, it has been a week and yeah, virtual school and coordinating all of Rowan's like therapies by Zoom. It's just been a lot this week. Um, and he was having some challenges with like adjusting to some things, and it was just really, really hard. So my husband went to Costco on like Wednesday or something. We were out of like coffee and that kind of stuff, but he picked me up some hydrangeas, which are also one of my favorite flowers, to just say he appreciates me, I suppose, and to kind of cheer me up a little bit, which did help. So the vase that I usually use for flowers has those flowers in it, and when we came home, I just kind of dumped the bouquet that I got today just in like a pitcher to hold it until I could cut it. So I need to do that when I get home. And yeah, I'm just going to read for the rest of the day. I'm enjoying when no one was watching, although I'm already like a little bit annoyed. So not with the book, but with the characters in the book. It takes place in Brooklyn. It is a neighborhood that is undergoing gentrification. So there is conflict between the new residents who are moving in, who are rich white millennials, and the neighborhood as it has existed up until that time. And so there was just a scene that I read where, so we get kind of two narrators in the story. There's Sydney, who has grown up in the neighborhood. She's currently living in the home that she grew up in with her mom. Her mom is sick and I believe is in some kind of care facility, but so, and then the other voice that we hear is Theo, and he is one of the white millennials that moves into the neighborhood with his girlfriend. Well, we learn that it's his girlfriend. I think Sydney thinks that it's his wife originally, but they are not married. And so there was just a scene like, we've just been introduced to Theo and learn that he really loves the neighborhood that they've moved into. Kim, I think, is the name of his girlfriend, and they are actually split up, but they bought the house together before they split up, and so he is living like on the very top floor, like in kind of an apartment, and she is living on the main floor of the house, and so there's some tension there, but he can't afford, I guess, to buy her out, and he doesn't want to leave and like lose money or whatever. And so they had, he's trying to kind of engage her and make things a little less awkward around the house. So he has, said like, oh, why don't we go get lunch? There's like a new place that opened up in the neighborhood. They end up going to like a bodega on the corner, I believe, and
he's like looking for beer, like they've ordered some food or whatever, and he's looking for beer. And while he's kind of looking around the store, his girlfriend Kim gets into a situation with Sydney where, he kind of walks up and catches the tail end of it. But from the way that it's set up, Sydney had been waiting in line to pay for her stuff, and Kim just kind of cuts in front of her and proceeds to set her stuff down on the counter. Sydney is like, I know you saw me standing here basically because I'm wearing a bright ass highlighter yellow sweatshirt, and it would be impossible to miss me. And even if you, on the off chance, didn't see me, once you looked up, you still couldn't miss me. And so Kim, of course, feels attacked because anytime someone who isn't used to being held accountable for their actions is asked to be accountable, they process that as an attack. She immediately starts crying and asking her why she's attacking me. Um, and then she threatens to call the police. So it's a tense scene. I'm annoyed with Kim and I just want her gone, because I've had that same interaction in the last few years more times than I can count. And it's infuriating and it makes you feel shitty, it makes you feel less than. And yeah, that's not a great feeling to have, especially on this day when you wake up in a country where you're not even sure you belong here anymore. So that's where I am on that happy note. I'm going to go pick my shit up from the library and I will check in later. Okay, so I wanted to do a quick check in. I'm not sure what time it is. It's probably around 9. I've done a little bit more reading and I haven't really gotten as far as I wanted to go. Um, but yeah, I'm enjoying the book so far, but the microaggressions are really, really triggering, and the sort of um, casual racism. We get conversations between Theo and Kim, where Kim is saying she's setting things up like her issue in the neighborhood is them and us. She says that a lot. Um, there's a so we've gotten the first hint that like something isn't made.
not be quite right. So there's a meeting at one of the neighbors' houses to plan like the block party for the summer. And only, I think, maybe like two or three of like the new people in the neighborhood come, and it's mostly like people who have been there. But so Sydney is has added her walking tour to the agenda because basically she wants to do a soft launch of the tour during the block party to help her kind of work out all of the kinks. And the kid, I think maybe he's in college, but the kid who is supposed to be helping her like do some of the research for the tour is has gone missing, but not like missing in a way that anyone is super concerned about it yet. Like there's another um, kid there who says, "Oh, I think once his class is finished, he goes to visit his cousins down south for a couple weeks, and they kind of live in the country. I don't really know how their internet is, like that sort of thing." So no, it's not alarming that he's gone, but it is sort of like, okay, this is could be something. And Sydney's a little bit annoyed because the person who was supposed to help her is now gone, and Theo is at this meeting, and he volunteers to help her. And she's annoyed. So they officially meet at this meeting, and it's a little bit uncomfortable for him. And there is some talk. Some of the teenagers there bring up, like, oh, people are being snatched, but it's more of one of those, like, urban legends. So no one's really putting much stock in it. Theo goes back home after the meeting and encounters Kim with two of the new neighbors that have moved in. They are clearly have been drinking and are a little bit tipsy, and they're pressing him for details about the meeting, and he, is not really with the bullshit and is like, just basically ask me what you want to know, because clearly there's some like side conversations you've had that I don't know what's going on. So what is it? Because they're really like going at him trying to figure out what they're discussing. So apparently there's like a neighborhood group, like a neighbor, I forget what they're called. But the the neighborhood watch app thing, and they have one for their neighborhood, so they're on that. But apparently some of the new neighbors have formed their own secret group for the neighborhood, and basically have been like shit talking the black people in the neighborhood and making their racist comments amongst themselves. So that, he's starting to realize, like, oh, it's not just like her casually being concerned about things here or there. There's really some underlying racism here, which I feel like, yeah, white people tend to give other white people the benefit of the doubt when what they mean is very obvious to non-white people. So anyway, that kind of throws him off a bit, and he decides to go for a walk to cool off. And as he's walking through the neighborhood, he has his first kind of encounter. It's dark. I'm not sure what time it is, but it's fairly, I don't know if it's like around 11 or 12 or something. And he's just walking to cool off, and there is a hospital, I believe, in the neighborhood that has closed and is basically abandoned, and there's some sort of corporation that's trying to move in there that's also causing conflict. And so he's peering around the fence, and he is I guess, attacked. He is confronted by a large. He finds out because the confrontation starts with his back turned, so he's not really sure what's happening. And then when he's turned around, he realizes it's a large black man who is very incoherent, um, and is doesn't really seem in his right mind. Theo can't tell if he's off mentally or if he's on drugs or something. And after the confrontation happens, we get his thoughts as he's like processing what's gone on. And he says he didn't ever, when he was looking at this man in his eyes, he never got the feeling that the man was trying to hurt him. It almost seemed like he was afraid of something, but not super coherent. Anyway, the man is spooked by lights on a police car and kind of runs off. And then basically the cops ask Theo if he's seen anything, that they're like searching for this man. And he says, yeah, he's seen him, he ran off in that direction. And the cops are like, hey, it's not safe for someone like you to be out this late at night. The neighborhood's not safe yet. Give it a couple years, which basically is saying, like, I'll give it a couple years until we run all the black people out of the neighborhood. So, I am enjoying the book. It's just like, some of it is blatant racism. Some of it is much more like microaggressions. It's all fairly triggering, and I'm not really a person that tends to get triggered a lot from books and whatnot, but it's just, a difficult time emotionally in the real world. So I think it's probably around 9. I'm going to go hang out with my husband. I think we're going to try to find something to watch on TV or a movie. I'm sure we'll both fall asleep though. So I'm not sure if I will check in again, but yeah, I'll talk to you later. Hi, it is Sunday, and I thought that I would check in. I am about let's see. I did read and listen to some more of When No One Is Watching, and I guess I'm about 145 pages in. So yeah, I'm still enjoying it. I am reading along with listening to the audiobook, which is available on Scribd. And yeah, it's taking me a little longer. I'm not gonna lie. Some of like the racism is just it's really hard to read right now. So it's about noon. I'm still in pajamas, as you can tell. It's just been a lazy morning here. I also picked up this from the library yesterday, which is Intimations by Zadie Smith, and it is just a very short collection of essays that she wrote during the start of lockdown, and I've seen this recommended on a couple different channels, and they actually had it available to check out, so I got it when I went yesterday. So I think I'm going to read a couple of these. I do want to do my nails, and I am supposed to stop by my sister's. She moved into a new place, and she's having like a little drive-by housewarming. And yeah, I'm really just like worn out, and I don't really feel like going, but I think I'm going to try to rally and at least just kind of pop by for a few minutes. We have no food, so maybe that will compel me to go to the grocery store. And that's really all that's on my agenda today. I think I'm going to rewatch The New Girl on Netflix, so I may do that while I do my nails just to give myself a bit of a break. So that's where we are. I will check in later. Hey guys, so I am I have about 100 pages left of When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. It is definitely starting to pick up a little bit more as the story wraps up. I actually had to stop listening to the audiobook version of it because it was getting more like scary to me as a person like who doesn't really enjoy being frightened or horror in any way. So I think it's a little bit easier for me to read. It doesn't like stay in my head as much, if that makes any sense. So yeah, all of the like various little strange things that have been occurring throughout the story. I think this is where the author is going to pull them all together and wrap it up. I have some thoughts, but I'm going to wait until I'm finished because I it's funny, like I had read some little like blurb or something um a little while ago that said people who have anxiety always read spoilers, or find spoilers, and that's very true for me. I have an anxiety disorder. I'm a very anxious person, and I read the spoilers for every um, kind of media I consume. So whether it is a movie or a TV show, I just like, I need to know. And I'm trying really hard not to. I have gone and read some of the reviews of this on Goodreads, but I'm really trying to stay away from the spoiler ones. Um, but some of the thoughts that people are having about the book and like why they're rating it, what they're rating it, like I have a few thoughts on that. So I suspect the way that the book is marketed has more to do with that than the actual book. But like I said, I'm going to try to finish the book and before I reach a conclusion on that. So yeah, still enjoying it. The pace has picked up a lot. It is very much like slow, I think, in the beginning, but I think so. There is like a little blurb on this book that says that it's, I think it says like something about Rear Window and Get Out. Um, and I can definitely, like, in terms of pacing, if you've ever seen Rear Window, like the original Hitchcock film, it's very much like that in terms of um, the pacing being very slow and all these kind of little breadcrumbs get thrown out there and you're not really sure like what you're seeing or how you're supposed to feel about what you're seeing. I think that is happening a lot in this book, so I'm interested to see like where the ending goes and how I will feel after it ends. So that's what I've been doing most of the day. And napping. I cleaned up my office, which was kind of a mess, and I did end up doing my nails, which I've done with like different colors. I'm not sure how I like it, but whatever. And then reading this book. So it's been a quiet day. We are getting ready to eat dinner, and then I'm going to try to finish this tonight before I go to bed. So if I don't check in again tonight, then I will definitely check in tomorrow with my thoughts on the book. So I will see you later. Good morning. It is Monday. And I didn't just finish reading this. I finished reading this last night, but I wanted to wrap up the reading vlog with my thoughts on this. So I finished it last night, and I really liked it. I initially gave it 5 stars, but I took it back down to 4, but it's somewhere between 4 and 5. So um, my thoughts on this are that I think it's being marketed as a thriller, but it's not really a thriller. In, I guess, the most common use of the word. So I think if it were being marketed as horror or maybe like a dystopian thriller, because it does take place in Brooklyn, um, and it talks about gentrification, but really the things that happen, like you need to be able to suspend belief to enjoy the book. And so I think when people hear thriller that they're going to automatically assume that the story operates within the boundaries of what's normal, and it doesn't really. So I think that if some of the readers, and it sounds like from some of the reviews that I've read on Goodreads, if they're going in thinking that it's just like the standard thriller, that they're going to be super confused by the way things are happening in the book and how the end of the story plays out. So I would definitely think that it would be more on the horror end of things. I don't really know because I don't read horror, or at least I didn't, but I guess I've read 2 books in the last couple months that have been sort of in that genre. So yeah, because to me, when I hear horror, I think of like horror movies, which aren't something that I am interested in watching. So it's not necessarily something I would be interested in reading either. So maybe they marked it as thriller to get more of a broader audience. I'm not sure. But I think with that, there comes some level of reader confusion or dissatisfaction because it doesn't follow the typical kind of format of a thriller. That being said, I did really enjoy the story. I think it's really um, a timely one and an important one to read right now as we deal with issues of racism and what that really means. And it's not just about, the KKK or someone hurling slurs at someone. Racism really is an institutionalized thing that's built into almost pretty much every single um, like structure of our country. So it deals with things like redlining and over policing and whitewashing of history. That I think those things are really important to think about and kind of consider, especially like where we are right now, kind of in society and as a country. So overall, I really, really enjoyed it. I would highly recommend it. Like I said, it's not quite 5 stars. There were, like when I'm thinking about it now, sorry, it was upside down. There were some things that kind of, uh, I don't know, kind of, I didn't enjoy language wise, but they're like personal things for me. And I also, once again, I think that kind of goes back to the way the book was marketed. So in the beginning of the book, I'm thinking that it's, a thriller, but there are, I guess, how would you describe them? Idiosyncrasies with the way some of the characters talk that struck me as odd and bothered me, but they wouldn't have if I'd known that the story wasn't taking place like within the constraints of a typical modern like Brooklyn setting. I'm not sure if that makes sense. So those were just like my own personal, I think, preferences. So it is somewhere between a 4 and a 5 star for me, but I would recommend it if you're interested. I also saw people who didn't really like enjoy or appreciate the romance aspect, which is not a huge part of the book, but there is, we do get the story from two characters. One is Sydney and one is Theo. Theo is the male main character, and there is like a romantic thing that happens between them. But to me, well, I mean, first of all, Alyssa Cole is a romance author, so the idea of there not being romance would be weird to me. I don't think it's overdone. I do think that it makes sense within the story. They're neighbors. Two single neighbors often are attracted to each other, or I would think that they would be. And there are some intense things that happen in the story, and so I do think that like romance and attraction and like sex, all of those things are heightened um, when there's intense emotion. So it didn't really strike me as out of place. So yeah, that is it. So I did finish 2 books this weekend. Last night I also started listening to The Kiss Quotient, which I'm really enjoying. So hopefully I will finish that this week as well. But yeah, so I'm going to wrap this up, and hopefully you enjoyed it. It's the first time that I've like well, it's not the first time that I've started vlogging, but it's the first time that I've actually completed an entire one. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more from me, then click the subscribe button down below, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.